Welcome to my studio. This is video number 5, and in this video we're going to draw a horse and rider. Now I'm going to show you also, if you want to draw it a little bigger than the photograph, I'll show you how to scale that drawing up. So if you're ready, let's go. Okay, we're starting off with a photograph that is 8 inches this direction and 10 inches this way. And I've divided this into a grid. I've divided it first in half this way, half that way, and then I divided each section into halves. So that we've got 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches that way, and then 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 that way. Now I want to increase the size of this drawing, so I want it to be, instead of 8 inches here, I want it to be 10 inches here. And instead of 10 across here, we don't know exactly what this dimension is. So we're going to use that old algebra that when you were in school, you just couldn't figure out why you had to learn algebra, because how am I ever going to use that? Well, here's how you're going to use it. We're going to take and create a ratio, which is 8 inches to 10 inches. So we'll go like that. 8 inches over 10 inches is to 10 inches, or 10 inches over x. And x is this dimension right here. So if we multiply these out this way and this way, you have 8x equals 100. And to solve this little algebra equation, look out, Einstein, here we come. We're going to divide by 8 to cancel that out, and then we're going to divide this by 8. So x equals 12 1/2. So now we know the dimension of this part of the drawing right here is going to be 12 1/2. And so this box now, 10 inches by 12 1/2, is the same proportions as this box 8 by 10. And I'm going to divide this box up into grids. First I'll divide the whole box in half, and then half that way, and then I'll divide each half, so that we have this divided by 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and then the 12 is divided by 6 1/4, 6 1/4, 12 1/2, and then you divide that in half. And so that this grid matches this grid up here. So now I can start to pencil in, and I've done some of this work in advance so that it saves us some time. But I can just, by looking at this, let's start at the head here. I see where the nose starts right about there and comes down, and then over here, and I just sort of begin to pencil that in where it ends up right about there. Again, the head is up to about this level, the ears pointing out like that, and now the eye is just about a little over a third of the way up right there. And it's, if you look at where it is in that box, you can kind of begin to locate these things. Now it doesn't have to be totally perfectly accurate, because we can adjust this as we go. And here you can see I did the same thing where the neck comes across and begins to form where the saddle is, and the pommel, and where that comes down, and then the saddle horn is up here, and the cantle, which is your seat, is right there. You can just kind of locate these things generally. Now here it's a little further back, it would be a little closer up here, but probably is, I've got this a little too slanted an angle right there. It would be up more like this, and then come down. So I can erase some of that. So you can make these little adjustments. There's a little bit of the support of the cantle right there. And now you begin to put in the individual features. Once you get this basic shape of the horse drawn in, you can see it would come down here and find out where that hits about in there, and then it comes down right here. It comes down, and then there's a little swelling right here where the joint is. It's not really swelling, just where the joint is. And then that comes down and gets lost in the grass down here. Same way with the leg, comes down here. This part of the leg right about in there and comes down like this. And you just do this for the whole drawing. You kind of locate where the object is in that square and sort of pencil it in. And once you're done with that, you've got the drawing laid out in the same proportions as the original photograph. Now I'm not going to go through each step and do it because it's the same steps, just each grid here, each little square you find out you corresponding in the photograph, and you find out where each object is located. Okay, so now that we've got that done, we can start to add the details. So we've got a harness that sits right over here, and it comes around like that and over here like that. And part of it goes up here, and then there's a little part that comes down right here and goes down underneath the chin right there, or underneath the neck. And there's a piece of the, there's a little buckle right up in here, and there's a piece of the harness that comes down, almost down here to the edge of that grid. And then the rest of the harness comes down about in here. And then it begins to, there's some hardware in here. The bit is kind of in like that, and then it sort of curves around like this. It's got a big loop there. And then the other side of the bit is back over here, and it's got a big loop. Now we've got a part of the reins come down here, all the way down to there and up to the hand right here, the rider's hand. And this little bit of the reins here comes over and touches the hat right there, and then it goes from here up and over the neck of the horse. Just put that in there like that. Now this horse has got a big muscle right through here that controls the neck, and it comes around sort of like that, and then this area here is a little bit in the shade or shadowed by that muscle right there. So we're going to add a little bit of graphite there. The other part of the muscle, or the neck right here, this muscle sticks out like this, and so the other part of the neck is in shadow too, but there's the mane covers most of that. So we're just going to indicate that mane a little bit here with some lines, and we will put some more detail in a minute. Okay. Now you get back to the head here. There's a big jaw right here, jawbone right there, part of the bone structure, and it sticks out, and then there's a recessed area right behind it here, right like that, and it comes up here, so this area right in here is sort of recessed. And there's a lot of subtle things going on here with the head. For example, there's a area right in here that's sort of recessed, an area right in there that's kind of recessed, and we will indicate these things by putting in highlights. It'd be a little easier to see it. There's a little bit of a ridge right there, and then kind of a sunken area right through here. Now on the nose, the nose comes around. Let me see if I can get that over here on the light to where you can see it better. The nose comes around like this and then like that. So it kind of comes around, then goes up and fills in that little area right there. And there's a little area just behind it right here. And it sort of sticks out and it sort of recesses right here. So wherever you've got a recess like that, a shadow, remember you're going to have a highlight somewhere there. So we'll just put that up there. And this whole area down in here is a little bit more shaded than this area, a little darker than this area. I think the light is coming in over here. So this catches more light. So we're going to just on the other side of this harness, we're going to shade in some of that. And right down underneath here. A horse's lower jaw comes around like that, and then it sort of comes around and in like this. And it's hard to see it on this drawing because the bit and all the hardware here is getting in the way. So at this point right here, I'm going to shade some of this, or smooth it out, I should say. And I want to take out some of these grid lines here now, so because they're going to get in the way, so we don't really need them. Once we get this, the whole animal penciled in, we can actually start taking these grid lines out. I might as well do that right here. Okay, and get down here, we'll take these out, because we don't want those showing up in the, as we start to add some value here to the drawing. And get these out of the way too. Okay. Now I'm going to take my my graphite on a cotton ball here, and I'll get just a little bit more on here, and we'll start to shade in some of this area. We're going to have to go back and find this this harness, because it's going to get kind of lost in the shading here. But we can just pick it out with an eraser. That's okay. Okay, we'll get this down here, right about there. Okay, I can see right now that I've got some areas here where I erase that are showing up as kind of dark patches, and I don't want those in there. So I'm just going to take them out with an eraser, very lightly. Even that up a little bit. Okay, you can even that up with your finger. That works just fine. Okay, now I want to find the harness here. It's right up there, and there's a piece right there. It comes down like that. This comes down like that. This piece comes across there, and there's a little piece that goes right down here. Okay. All right. And then of course we've got this part of the reins that come up over here. And I think I need to soften this a little bit more. I don't want too many of those lines showing through. And I've got a little bit right here where I can take that out. And right up in there. Okay. All right, now we can begin to go back and put in a little bit more detail. Because like I said, there's some very subtle things happening here in the head area here. So I'll darken that just a little bit. Darken this a little bit. I want to put a little bit of shadow behind this piece of harness that comes down, so you recognize that it's actually sticking out from the rest of the horse's head. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that hardware up here, just a little bit. Okay, and then there's a I said, there's a little ridge right there, a little bit of a darker patch right in here. And I'm going to take my eraser and just pick some of that out, just very slightly there. Again, like I said, there's a lot of very subtle things going on here. A lot of bony structures in this skull, the horse's skull. And I'm going to put it. There's a light reflection on the eye right here. Now I want to just leave a little bit of that exposed there so we don't color it all in, shade it all in. And made that eye just a little bit too much there. Okay, then I'm just going to put there's a little bit of shading right underneath the eye here. There's an area right in there and right down in here that's a little darker. Now there's a dark area right here on the ear. The tip of the ear is kind of dark, and there's a little shadow right here because that light again is coming this direction, and so there's going to be a little shadow on the back side of that ear. Same with this one. Okay, now the harness that comes up here like that, there's another piece right in there, and we want to put a little line underneath here that shows that there's a little shadow underneath that piece of harness right there. Okay, and same with this as it comes down here. And again, I want to darken that a little bit in there. I'll take this cotton ball here, a little bit of easier to get into this sharp area here, this narrow area. And same with this piece right here, it kind of comes around like that, and it sort of gets lost here in the dark shadow of the neck. And I want to add some value right down through here a little bit more so that you see the edge of that muscle right there. Now, like I said, there's big muscle right through here, and so you don't see that shadow area right there, and you don't really see the highlight of that muscle except maybe right on the edge right there, but because it's all blocked by the mane coming over here. And that mane kind of curls over from the top. It doesn't rest right flat on the neck. It sort of wraps over the top of it. So I want to indicate a little bit of that going on there. And we can take a eraser, the edge of our eraser, and we can just pick out some of these lines coming down here. Just very lightly. Don't worry about them being squiggly lines because they don't have to be perfectly straight because the hair on the mane is not perfectly straight. If this was a horse in a show, they might in a horse show, they might comb that out to where it was really straight, but this is a horse on a ranch. It's a working ranch, and so that's not going to be groomed that closely. Okay, I'll get that line right there cleaned up a little bit. And it's always nice to have a little brush where you can get rid of that eraser stuff. Now let's see what we've got over here. We can work on this next grid. And you got some, well, we've got there's a little bit of rawhide stitching up here. And that's kind of a dark area right there where that rawhide comes together. Then your top of your saddle horn is right here. There's some rawhide that's wrapped around the saddle horn there to protect it from the rope as the cowboy is doing some roping there. And I want put in this lariat here. And this all gets very confusing in here. A lot of little details in here. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit more. Then right over in here, there's the, I think it's called the latigo. That's where the big loop, where you've got some of the lariat passes through this latigo here. And there's a big piece that comes down here, but I'm not going to include that. It's not really necessary for the drawing. It's kind of confusing. Now there's a saddle blanket underneath here that goes up to about there, where that buckle is. And it's a very light color, so let's just leave that almost white in there. And it sort of goes up here. The saddle comes around and comes down here. There's a piece right in here, and you've got some lacing that hangs down from there. I want to take some of these construction lines out here too. It's important to remember to get them out of there because they're going to be in the way when we try to add some graphite in here. Okay, now part of the skirting, the saddle skirting comes down here and around like this. There's another piece up here that overlaps this piece right here, continues through, and there's what they call a D ring right in here. And it comes up here, and that goes up that way. There's a piece that comes out here, comes down like that, and you have there's a little bit of the underside of the saddle right here, and then you have your saddle blanket is right down here, and this part of the saddle is where your leg rests against. It comes around like that, and then it forms around a little bit of the stirrup right here. And I'm going to indicate that like this. So like that. Okay. And this comes down like that. Now we've got the part of the saddle here that wraps around and cinches up tight to hold the saddle in place. And there's another piece, I think it's right in here, maybe not, but we'll see. I'm going to draw this area right in here. There's a big buckle right there. We want to indicate that. And the strap comes down, and then there's a piece of leather right here that kind of covers it, holds the strap in place, and it sort of goes off like that. And then the rest of the strap goes underneath like that. If I was a cowboy, I'd know what that was called, but I'm not, so I'm just calling it a strap. There's a little piece of a little concho up here that, and some rawhide that hangs down. Okay, so now, and back up here at the saddle, there's a piece that goes around like that, and it comes over and then down like this. And part of that saddle is right there, and this is the seat. Okay, so now we've got also this breastplate right here, that comes down and fits around the horse's breast, that keeps the saddle from sliding back, keeps it in place. And it comes up here, and there's another ring, metal ring right here. And this strap comes across, and it hangs down in here. And you can't see it, but there's a little pin right there that goes through. And then there's another little strap up here, or buckle up here, I'm sorry. And then that goes into where it attaches to the saddle. So right now we can start to put in some more detail here. I think that comes across like that. Okay. And we can begin to add some value, some graphite in here. There's a little line right there I want to take out. Okay, and I'm just going to shade this in. Again, it's the same procedure. Like I said, it's a matter of softening the lines, picking out your details, and picking out the highlights. Like there's a little highlight right in there. And of course, this piece of harness is there's no big dark line on that side because it's not getting a shadow there. The shadow is on this back side of it right here. And you always want to remember where your light is coming from. Okay, and I think I've got this a little too dark right in here, so I'm just going to take out a little bit of that. Now we could do that with the kneaded eraser, but again, if you don't have a kneaded eraser, you can just use your pink pearl, just drag it across there like that and lighten some of that. Use your finger to kind of blend it a little bit. And we can go back in and darken areas. As you can see on this drawing right here, or this photograph, there's a big muscle right in here, and it comes around, and I think what you're seeing right here, you're seeing a little bit of the breast of the chest area here, and it's right in there. And we want to indicate this line right here. This is where the leg joins the rest of the body right here. And so there's a muscle right in through there. And then it comes up here and it sort of goes up that way. Okay. Now up here underneath this saddle blanket, you've got a shadow, and it's up here, and it comes across there. It's also underneath the, little bit underneath the saddle itself. And there's a part of the blanket here is black, and so it comes across there like that. And then there's a little label, like the manufacturer's label, the owner's, or the, you know, what company this made this saddle blanket. So we're going to darken that in, like so. Okay, and I'll take this cotton ball and sort of smooth it out a little bit. We can do more with that in a minute. Okay, now there's also, I noticed there's another concho up here, concho with these little silver discs like that, and then you have your latigo, or your rawhide. And what the cowboys use this for is they use this to tie their bedroll onto the back of the saddle, or their rain poncho. Or if you have a pair of saddlebags, you can tie them on with that. Okay, so let's put some graphite in here. We'll blend this a little bit. Again, I got to get rid of these lines here. Okay, like that. And we'll bring this down here. Now, the horse's body right here is going to be a little lighter up here, and then it's going to get darker as it gets down here underneath the horse. So we'll just keep that in mind as we're shading this. You don't see any lines of fur or anything like that because the hair is really close to the body on a horse like this. Unless you're looking at a horse in the wintertime when their coat gets very shaggy. But this is not winter. This picture was taken in the probably in the summer or spring, something like this. And so the horse's fur is very, very short. You don't see direction, so you just kind of follow the contour of the body, what you think the contour of the body would be. And right here, we've got this area down here is quite a bit darker because it's really underneath the bottom of the horse. And then right in here, there's a little joint that comes up here. And we can indicate that with some of these highlighted areas here. We can indicate those by taking our eraser and removing some pencil graphite. Right now, I just want to fill in this area. Okay, and then we can soften it with some graphite. Get a little graphite on that. Get a little bit more here on this. Just smooth that in, get rid of those lines, because you're not going to want to see those lines too much. I probably wouldn't have drawn it this dark if it wasn't for the fact that it has to show up on the camera. So, okay, now at this point right here, we can begin to take out some of the lines. I want to put the tail in here because it helps to define the rump right there. So we're going to just darken that hair around the tail here, so it comes down and so it comes around like that, and that defines this back end here. And don't worry about, you know, those lines showing up here, because we're going to use those lines to indicate the different strands of fur there, or hair, I should say, not fur there. Okay, and we'll fill that in a little bit. Okay, now I can begin to lighten some of these areas. Like there's a little light area that's just right around the edge here. It kind of comes up like that. And there's a little light area on the very edge there. Sort of comes down. This area right in here is a little lighter. And you can see there's a ridge right here, or an indentation right there. So we want to indicate that. And right up in here, the leg, the back leg on the other side is visible. Okay. And right up in here, there's a area where the stomach comes around and recesses into that joint right there. And again, where you've got a shadow, you've probably got a highlight someplace there. And that highlight is right through here. So if we kind of indicate that, soften it a little bit because it's not that strong. There's another highlight right through here. Frederick Remington really knew horses. He was a very articulate artist when it came to depicting horses. He knew them, every joint and muscle. And prior to Remington, they didn't have good photographs of how a horse ran. So you saw pictures of paintings with the horse's front legs going this way and the back legs going that way. And of course, horses don't run like that. But nobody knew how to really portray them because it was hard to see. Once a horse is in motion, it's really hard to see what those legs are doing. And then when photography came around, somebody saw a way to take still motion picture sequence in pictures in sequence, and he published a book, and for the first time you could really see what the legs were doing, and all of a sudden, you know, the paintings of horses became so real that you could see exactly how they ran, and Frederick Remington was really good at portraying that. If you want to really learn how to draw horses, you should get some of his early pencil studies and watercolors of horses. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something, and we used the same principles that we have throughout all the other earlier drawings. We just added a cowgirl in here and a dog. I did want to talk about perspective a little bit, at least aerial perspective. This picture shows some of that. As you can see in the very front here, you've got very sharp detail and good color, and then as the image moves back into the background, you lose that detail and the colors begin to fade a little bit. That's all part of aerial perspective or atmospheric perspective. And that's an important thing to know if you're doing landscape drawings. If you're doing drawings of buildings, you're going to want to know something about 1 and 2 point perspective, but that's a little complicated for young children, really young children. There are a lot of videos out there that go into detail on that, and we'll cover a little bit of it, but I got to find the right drawing, the right photograph to illustrate it. I'm going to cut this a little short here because my granddaughter told me that I talk too much. So we're going to try to make this video just a little bit shorter. And join me on number 6.